Good morning and welcome back. If you happen to be tuning in live via our 80s Wrestling the Podcast YouTube page, jump into the comment section, click the link pinned at the top to get on the air with us. Just a reminder before joining, turn your cameras off, use headphones if possible, and mute the YouTube live stream before entering the backstage area. Prevents us from hearing some echoes. Once you're in that backstage area, you can still follow and participate in the YouTube comment section by clicking the comment section of our studio app. Don't forget to follow the page, hit that notification bell to stay up to date on show topics, special guests, and all that good stuff. We've got a fun show today as our guest, none other than Sonny Beach, perhaps best known for being one half of the Wet and Wild tag team alongside Steve Ray. You may remember Sonny from his appearances in the WWF, his time competing in Herb Abrams UWF, and even his appearance in the wrestling blockbuster movie No Holds Barred, starring, of course, Hulk Hogan, known for his tie-dye gear, those trademark sunglasses, and unforgettable look. Sonny Beach carved out a unique place in wrestling history. Join us as we discuss his journey through professional wrestling, his memories from the World Wrestling Federation, the UWF, stories from the road, working around some of the biggest names in the business, and of course, what it was like being part of No Holds Barred. All that and more on this live episode of 80s Wrestling the Podcast. My name, Jumpin' Jay, and joining me, the one and the only, the Confather, Mr. Tommy Fierro. Tommy, good morning, brother. What is going on today? Tommy, can you hear me, brother? Tommy must be either in commute to the studio still or having trouble unmuting his microphone. But like I said, we got a very special guest joining us. I'm going to bring him into the studio right now. He competed in the legendary UWF during one of wrestling's hottest periods. He worked alongside many of the area's biggest stars and even found himself on the set of the No Holds Barred movie, one of the most memorable wrestling films ever made. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to 80s Wrestling the Podcast, none other than Mr. Sandy Beach. Sandy, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jumpin' Jay. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, brother. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to meet with us today. I know you're a very busy man. Looks like Sonny just dipped from the studio as well. Maybe some technical difficulties haunting 80s Wrestling the Podcast this morning. We'll see if we can get Sonny Beach back on. Sonny, are you there?
I'm here.
Thank you so much, brother, for taking time out of your busy schedule. This is a live podcast. We get lots of callers. A lot of people will want to connect with you and ask you some questions. But right off the bat, I just want to thank you for joining us this morning.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Love Tommy Fierro, great guy. I've known Tommy for, almost 30-some years now. And met him at John Arizzi's first wrestling convention. And I guess that's where he caught the convention bug. And he's been doing great things ever since.
Well, he's the co-host here. He'll be joining us momentarily. I see that he's connected, but I don't have audio connection with him. So he must be working through some technical difficulties. You brought up the 80s, the wrestling conventions that Tommy puts on. You've been to them. I've actually met you at one of them in New Jersey. I live in Minnesota, but I traveled out with my family. From a performer standpoint, I would love to get your take on the convention scene. What do you think as a performer getting to meet and greet some of your fans and see some of the other performers that you maybe haven't seen in a few years?
Well, the good thing is, like, wrestling business, we're like a fraternity, like a college fraternity. We're brothers, and we travel the roads together. We're usually with the wrestlers more than we're with our own families, throughout the years. Like with WWF, we would wrestle out of a 30-day month, we'd wrestle probably 27 to 28 days out of the month. We'd be home for like 2 weeks on, 2 days off, 2 weeks on, 2 days off. So, you get very close with a lot of these guys. And the good thing is, we get to see each other at these conventions and stuff, and we still remain relevant so much. And the fans enjoy the wrestling conventions. They get to interact with the wrestlers. They get to meet them. They get to ask questions, take pictures with them, fulfill a lot of their childhood fantasies and stuff like that.
That's true. As a wrestling fan, when you walk into convention, you just see the guys that you grew up idolizing right there in front of you. You get to meet them, shake their hands, ask them questions. Now, Sonny, you've been in the ring with some absolute legends. You've been in the ring with Cowboy Bob Orton, Shawn Michaels, the Dynamite Kid. Is there anybody that when you shared a ring with them, it was kind of a pinch me moment for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, like Andre the Giant, I got to wrestle with him a few times over in Japan. I was in a lot of battle royals with him and stuff, and he was like the ultimate guy to get in the ring with. Everybody knew who Andre the Giant was, especially growing up in the 70s, early 80s. I was a big wrestling fan. I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, so I grew up on championship wrestling from Florida with Dusty Rhodes, Dory, and Terry Funk, Mike Graham, Steve Kern, guys like that. So I got to idolize a lot of these people. And, I grew out of cartoons, when I was, 6, 7 years old into professional wrestling. So that's all I wanted to be growing up, either a policeman or a professional wrestler.
Well, Sonny, you're not a small guy yourself. I think you're built around 6'4", 260. How big was Andre the Giant?
He was at least 450 pounds and about 7'4". Finley. My dog's barking. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Jumpin' Jay, can you hear me now?
Tommy, the Confather, joining us. Tommy,
man.
we're live with Sonny Beach, brother. He's in studio with us.
Sonny, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Tommy. How are you?
Good. We started a new app 2 weeks ago, and both weeks I've been defeated trying to log in, but I'm happy I'm here now. And I did hear what you said about us first meeting at John Arezzi's Weekend of Champions, and you're right. That was the first time, and it was before I even started promoting. I was still a fan, and I just went there. My mom took me there, and it was the one that Bruno Sammartino and Larry Sabisco, they reunited at that one. Juice and Thunder Lager was at that. I remember Curry Von Erich was there, and I remember you guys had a table for the UWF, and you were one of the first wrestlers I met because you guys were in I remember that the other guys were in a separate room and you were in the vendor room. And I remember, I
Right.
believe you were probably the first wrestler that I met there. And even as a kid, you were so nice and humble, and me being from Jersey and you from New York, I've known you for a long, long time. And
Oh, yeah.
even as a kid, just breaking into business, man, you've always been so good to me, and you've helped me out tremendously with other things in the past. So first of all, I just want to thank you for all you did to help me out in the
My
business.
pleasure. I'm glad we have guys like you in the business. There's so many bad guys in this business that, give wrestling a bad name or short pay you or, lie, cheat, deceive you and stuff. But you're one of the good guys, Tommy, and everybody loves you. So,
Thank you,
I
sir.
try to help you however I can. You put on some of the best events that I've attended, and all the guys are very happy when they come there, and they know they're going to get paid. They know you're going to treat them right. And, that says a lot for, somebody in this business, especially with your longevity and stuff, also promoting shows and stuff. Never heard a bad thing said about you. So, whenever I can try to help book some talent for you or help you out with anything, I'm there for you.
Thank you very much. And a little peek behind the curtain, Jumpin' Jay. He's Rick Sunny Beach here is good friends with Stan Hansen. And remember the time we had that virtual signing on 80s Wrestling? He helped me get him then, and also for 80s Wrestling Con. I want to get into your relationship with Stan in Japan, but real quick, I want to touch upon No Holds Barred because just I don't know if you know, just a couple days ago was the 37th anniversary of No Holds Barred. And I remember watching in the opening night in the movie theater. How did that all come about? You getting that role and being part of that, and looking back on it now, how cool is it to say that you're a part of that?
It was very cool, and I still don't know how I got that role. I was wrestling independence and Georgia Championship wrestling up there, and a place called Peach State Wrestling and Southern Championship for Jerry Blackwell. And I just came off of a TV taping. I think it was me and Dougie Summers were tagging against Tommy Rich and Bruiser Brody up there for a Southern Championship. And Joe Pedicino was one of the commentators with Rhubarb Jones up there. And I think Joe sent the tape to, WWF, because I know they were looking for talent down there, some unknown talent that nobody really knew. And they liked me and they cast me in it. And I had the fight scene with Joe the Duke in the no count bar, the first fight scene. And then WWF signed me to a contract right after that. So it worked out beautifully for me. I was going to be a policeman in Jacksonville, Florida with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. I was just completed the police academy at the time. And Vince offered me a deal I couldn't refuse. So, you know, a 2-year deal, and I took it. And he goes, after 2 years, if you don't like wrestling, you could always go back to being a policeman or whatever you want to do. And I said, I think I'll stick with wrestling. So I did that, and I never went back, and I've never had any law enforcement, you know,
Wow.
experience
You,
because of that. And it kind of changed my trajectory of my career.
as long as I've known you, Rick, I didn't know, and this was one of the questions I was going to ask you today on the podcast. I didn't know that you were under contract to WWF, because I do know that not only you did a lot of TV and enhancement work throughout the years, but you also did several many house shows as well. And I always found it weird that a non-contracted wrestler was doing house shows. And I was to ask you about that today. When did you get signed? And how many? I mean, what years were you signed for
I
WWF?
think it was like June of '88 to like June of '90. You know, I did like 2 years under contract, and then I was per diem after that. But I got to go overseas with them on a lot of overseas tours, England. You know, I went to Germany. You know, some I did a ton of house shows here, all over Canada and stuff. I mean, I wrestled, you know, pretty regular for the first year, '88. You know, the whole time after No Holds Barred. And then sporadically after that, you know, somebody couldn't show up, I'd do a house show, or they fly me in TV tapings and stuff. So, you know, they looked out for me for 2 years. So, I mean, I was very happy. And then, you know, I wrestled another year and a half after that with them. You know, I did almost 4 years with them on and off.
That's awesome. I did not know that. I did not know you were under contract to them.
Yeah, then I went to Japan with All Japan Pro Wrestling, and then I came back and I did the Herb stuff, you know, in between all that stuff, and worked with Bob Urey and Rob Raskin with IWA, and went down to Global Championship down there for tag tournaments, and then Herb squashed that. He said I was under contract with him, which I wasn't. I was an independent contractor, but he didn't want his talent going anywhere else, so he kind of squashed that. Because Joe Pedicino was at Global, and he wanted to bring me in and, you know, work down there in Texas. So, but you know, I got to travel the world, and I got to go to, you know, I was still involved in some of the territories towards the end, you know, when Vince was taking over everything back in '88 and stuff.
Very fascinating, Jumpin' Jay, right?
It's unbelievable. You know, you talked about his friendship with Stan Hansen. We talked about No Holds Barred. Sunny Beach, is No Holds Barred where you met Stan Hansen, or did you know him prior to filming?
I actually knew him prior to it, when he was with Georgia Championship Wrestling. I worked a couple of shows, you know, spot shows here and there, filling in. And then, you know, when the Superstation took over and they started going all over the place, you know, with Turner and stuff, he was in Jacksonville a few times. I met him there and stuff. So I knew him prior to that, maybe a year before No Holds Barred, like '87. I met him, and you know, he remembered me, and then we got to be very close friends at No Holds Barred. We were on the set for, you know, 10, 12 hours a day for like a week and a half. And, you know, we shared the same trailers and stuff. We would eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner together, go to the gyms, hang out, you know, our spare time. So, you know, we got very close. He's the first person to take me for a sushi dinner. I never knew what sushi was till I met Stan. So he took me out. He paid for everything. He's like a big brother to me, kind of.
Oh, that
You
is
know,
very cool.
so much. He got me booked in Japan. So, I mean, you know, I owe Stan a lot.
He was one of the first wrestlers that I was scared of as a kid. I'll be honest. They had a cover of a magazine that said, "We found the man that can beat Hulk Hogan." And it was a picture of Stan Hansen. And,
oh, yeah.
It's ingrained into my brain. Ladies and gentlemen, we're live with Sunny Beach. Hit that connect button to get on the air with us. We're going to start taking some calls on the Wrestling Collector Slam line. Up first, it's none other than Firefighter Brian. Brian, good morning, brother. You are live with Mr. Sunny Beach.
Hello,
Good
Brian.
morning. Hello, Sonny. How are you, bud?
Good.
Good, excellent. And listen, don't apologize about the dog, because it's just a matter of time before my 21-month-old makes his presence felt. So he does it almost every show. So anything
Got
flies here, Sonny.
eight
So
8-month-old puppy here that I'm trying to train. So
8 months. God bless. What kind of dog is it?
he's a Havanese Shih Tzu.
Oh, nice. So it's a small one.
Yeah, he's a small one, but he thinks he's a Rottweiler, though. He chases deer in my backyard and squirrels and rabbits, and he's just a happy boy.
I believe it. My dog is a Shih Tzu Dachshund, so he's about, 20 something pounds soaking wet. and he'll play with with an attack dog if they let him.
Oh
So
yeah,
our dogs, they give the term not the size of the dog in the fight, size of the fight and the dog a whole new meaning.
that's
So
it.
I've seen my dog's bullied around dogs more than twice the size of him. So yeah, so I know the feeling. But yeah, have fun with that, man. Breaking in puppies is always fun. It really is. So
Appreciate it. What's your
absolutely, of
question?
course. And and I met you back, I think in like September, October, in a at a like a convention, a show at the Elks Lodge in Astoria.
Okay,
Um, and yeah, really enjoyed meeting with you and talking with you. And it's really good to have you on, Sonny, because this show we primarily concentrate on WWF because that's what we grew up on, and it was the
right.
most available promotion around the country. Not everybody got UWF, and it's important to talk about promotions like that because WWF is important, but it just scratches the surface of 80s wrestling. There's just so much more to it. So I'm really glad you're on. And what I want to, one thing I want to ask you is, listen, I love hearing stories, whether they be road stories, locker room stories, in ring, out of ring, whatever. I can listen to you guys talk all day and all night. The problem with that is, of course, I know that stories are a sensitive situation. There's a lot of stories that you can't tell for various reasons. Let me ask you, Herb Abrams to this day remains one of the biggest characters in the history of the business. And think of the ground that covers. Herb has to be probably in the top five of characters. Would that be fair to say?
I would say so. I mean, Herb was his own person, and he did his own thing, and I respected what he was trying to do. But on the back end, he had a private life, and and I don't judge people. That's why
Right.
I've got so many friends and stuff. I treat people the way I want to be treated all the time. And Herb did his own thing in his private time, and people judged him by that. And sometimes he overindulged in some of the bad stuff in life, and that's what ultimately attributed to his demise.
Right. I mean, listen, he had a great. I mean, the impression I get is you know better than me, obviously, but the impression I get is he had a great vision. He had a great idea, but didn't seem to know how to go about doing it and making it a reality and bringing his idea to life. And, it doesn't help that, that you're, almost always high as a kite on God knows what. So that doesn't help either. But two questions I want to ask: is there any stories that you can tell about Herb and the guy he was in a good way? And the other question is, what was because I watched The Dark Side of the Ring on Herb Abrams, and the most insane thing about that episode was toward the end, people are hinting that he might actually be alive, which is crazy. So
Well, it
what I
is
want
crazy
yeah.
conspiracy theory. Throw that out the window. I was at his funeral. I was the one that called his mother to let her know that he had passed and everything
Oh
else.
my.
And that was one of the hardest things I had to do. But the good side of Herb Abrams, he did a lot for charity that a lot of people don't know about. He used his own money. He would donate money. He would always have the kids. He would give free tickets out to kids, hospitals, charities for the shows and stuff like that. So Herb had a very good side to him. He was a happy-go-lucky guy. He was a practical joker. He liked to joke around. He liked to laugh. He liked to sing karaoke. I mean, a lot of good things. He was a dog owner. He had his dog Cokie, who I took ownership of right after he passed away and took care of it till he died. So I mean, there was a lot of good about Herb too. But then his private life, was his private life. But everybody is more interested in his private life than what he tried to do for wrestling. He took his own money, tried to bankroll a wrestling promotion. Um, Used a lot of other people's money, like some investors and sponsors and stuff, for his own personal addictions and stuff like that. But he was a good person deep down. Everybody wanted to work for him, from Bruno Sammartino to Andre the Giant, Rick Rude, Greg Valentine, Honky Tonk. Everybody wanted to work for him. Blackjack Mulligan. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said about him. Bob Backlund worked for him. I mean, Ivan Koloff. So, I mean, every major name in the business wanted to work for him. John Tolis, Brian Blair. So, Don
Hey,
Baraka.
Rick, I want to jump. I'm sorry, Brian. I want to jump in real quick about the Andre the Giant working for Herb Abrams because that was right after his big WWF run. And this is before he made that appearance at the Clash of the Champions. How did that come about with Andre going to UWF?
Well, he was trying to give the middle finger to Vince, after, Vince kind of told him, hey, you're done, you're old, a lot of injuries, value to me anymore. And he kind of threw him away like an old pair of shoes, kind of, after Andre helped build the company, WWF. So, and Andre was a big draw wherever he went. Every territory, when Andre came in, you were going to get a sellout, so Andre was a huge draw back in the 70s and, to almost to 1990. He almost had a good 20-year run, Andre, until the injuries took over. And, Andre, his quality of life, I mean, he was in constant pain towards the end. He couldn't walk. He couldn't barely stand up. I had the honor of sharing the ring with him in Japan with him and Giant Bob and me and Johnny Ace. And, it was like, I felt bad for him because getting around, he had a hard time getting to the ring. He was wearing a back brace at the time. He would have to sit down before, and sometimes he'd have to, use a walker or crutches just to get to the ring and stuff, So he was still trying to give it a go, even up to the very end. And I know he didn't get money. I mean, it wasn't a money thing; it was a pride thing, and he just wanted to remain relevant. And that's all he knew, in his life, being a wrestler.
Yeah, and let me ask. I've heard people who've worked with him, and the stories that I've heard. It seems like if he liked you, you liked him. If he didn't like you, you hated him. What was the key to getting on Andre's good side? What was the key to getting along, or was there one? Or did it just that there's really no tutorial? What was the key to getting on Andre's good side?
I think just being a good person and, just, he would, you go up, like I'm old school. Like I used to go up to everybody, shake their hand, introduce myself, say hello to everybody. I'd go up to the old timers first. They don't come up to me, So you go up and shake everybody's hand. You're very respectful in the locker room. Maybe you bring in a case of beer for them, or drive them around or whatever. And that's how they like you. Share dinner with them, sit with them, talk to them. A lot of people were afraid of Andre. I don't know why, but I was always nice to him. He was nice to me. Well, one time in Japan, we had a layover at one of the airports, and he goes, "Hey kid, come drink with me." And I'm like, "You don't say no to Andre the Giant." So I'm not a big drinker, but especially at 11 o'clock in the morning, waiting for a layover in Japan. So I had like a 12-pack of beer, and I was a good buzz, maybe even drunk at the time. Andre polished off over a case, just sitting there, and I'm like, oh my God. So, and I was pretty messed up, but we had like a 2-hour flight, so I got to sleep on the plane, and I woke up, I was fine, but took a little nap. But, you never say no to Andre. And he was a joker too. He liked to play ribs and joke with people. He liked to play his cribbage. Him and Arnold Skolden were always playing cards, or a lot of the boys in the back, so he had his own little routine and stuff. But, towards the end of his life, he was in a lot of pain, and, and the quality of life wasn't there anymore for him with the multiple surgeries he had and stuff.
Yeah, it was a sad demise physically for Andre, and it's just it's terrible that he left us so soon. And speaking of big guys, let me on your time filming No Holds Barred, did you cross paths with Zeus? Did you get to meet or work with him?
Yeah, Tony Lester. I got to. We hung out for about a week together while we were shooting and stuff. Well, I didn't do any scenes with him, but me and Joe LeDuc were there, and then Stan was in there, and then Stan, I think, maybe had a fight scene with Zeus, I think. But it was really good. I mean, to meet him, he used to go work out with us. We used to work out at the Gold's Gym in Atlanta, Georgia. My friend Chip Smith owned it at the time, and that's the gym that Lex Luger and Sting bought down there. So we got to work out a lot. I got to work out with Terry down there, Hogan too, when we were filming at the Gold. So, I mean, it was like a really close-knit group of guys, when we were filming and stuff. When I was also filming, Pete Doherty was down there filming his scene. Jeep Swenson, I think, was there. And There was one other guy there. I forgot his name. He was good friends with Hogan. I forgot his name. But he grew up with him in Tampa, and Terry got him in the movie with him too. But we had a good time. Everybody would hang out together. Joe LeDuc, go out to dinner, drink. And Joe didn't really go to the gym with us. That wasn't his thing. He'd like to party and have his Cavassier, and we took him to a couple of clubs with us on the weekends and stuff when we weren't filming. We had a couple of days off here and there. But it was a good, a good movie, and it was my first movie, shooting stuff, and I got to become a member of SAG, because of the movie.
Do you still get any residuals from the movie, or is that all done and gone?
I do get a once in a while. I get a residual for like $10 here, $20 there. When the movie first came out, I was get a couple thousand here, a couple thousand there. One time I made enough to buy myself a tanning bed to keep the Sunny Beach gimmick going. So I put that in my house, but that was one residual check. So I made a decent amount of money my first year after the movie came out and stuff. Once it hit like the Showtime and HBO and all that stuff, and the different markets and then pay-per-view and all that. So we got some money out of the deal. But
Sonny,
now I can't even buy a Happy Meal with the money I get.
hey Sonny, was there any, especially back then, 1989, and there's a roster just filled with so many talented guys. Was there any pushback of this outsider coming in and getting a role in this movie while those guys weren't a part of it? Was there ever any heat or anything like that?
Believe it or not, there wasn't. I mean, they welcomed me with open arms. I was young. I was only like 24 years old. So guys like Haku, Hercules, these were all Florida guys. And, I wrestled with some of them down there, championship wrestling from Florida, Barry Horowitz. So I started riding with Barry and then Steve Lombardi and then riding with Haku or Nikolai Volkov, the Conquistadors, Estrada and Rivera. They all welcomed me. And, they looked at me like a little brother, and
That's great.
we share rooms together. I'm still to this day, me and Haku are very tight. Whenever I go to Orlando, I go visit him. Whenever he's up here, we hang out. And so, same thing like with Stan. He stays at my house. There's only a handful of guys that I would allow to do that. And those are two of the guys, Stan and Haku, that, my house is always welcome. Glacier, Ray Lloyd, he's been with me. I've helped break Glacier into business, and Ray's been a good friend since my early 20s, and we wrestled Peach State together. I got him as an extra, No Holds Barred. So, I mean, we've done a lot together. I remain, there's a good group of guys that I still remain friends with to this day.
Absolutely incredible. The stories you could tell, Sunny Beach. It's so fun to listen to them. We got a couple callers waiting on hold, so I'll let them get their chance as well. Up next on the Wrestling Collector Slam line, it's time for the rookie. It's time for Edwin. Edwin, good morning, sir. You are live with Sunny Beach.
Good morning, Edwin.
Edwin, are you there, brother?
Guys, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
All right, perfect. Yeah, because my mic was kind of being sort of weird today. But, I'm really glad to be talking with Sonny because I did some research. And, yeah, I did find out that he was in No Holds Barred. And quite frankly, after Hulk passed, I could see the photo with Sonny and Hulk. I just had a flood of memories that just came back to me. And really one of the first, if not the first memory I had was just No Holds Barred. So that movie, while, it has its critics, to me, it just meant so much to me because I started watching around like 88, 89. And really just having a WWF wrestling type movie was so big. And I just remember the promotion that movie had throughout that summer. And it was just so big. So just the fact like Sonny was actually on set and got to be part of the movie, I found that just incredible. So my question really so far is just, I always hear about, movies and just taking those long dates, kind of went into it, how you had like these 12-hour days on set. Like what's really, like, how does it really work? Like, do you just have like a script and you kind of have to know your script? You do a little practice in the trailer, there's catering. Like, how does it really work throughout the entire day? Because 12 hours is a long time.
Yeah, all the above. I mean, they sent me the script first, and I had like 3 days to get ready and everything. And then, with my fight scene, and it was, interactive. I didn't speak or anything, and I wish I would have. I would have made more money, but
Mhm.
all we were doing was like a plot point from the movie, to set the tone. The first fight scene in a no count bar, that little octagon bar in the no count bar, and we got to. We had a stunt coordinator. His name was Buck McDancer, and we went over. We actually choreographed our own fight scene, but they wanted us to the punches and stuff. We weren't going full speed and stuff, but me and Joe were laying it in, like we were wrestling, so it made it even look more believable and stuff. And Joe LeDuc was always a stiff worker. You could ask anybody that worked with him, but he was great with me. Joe, he took a liking to me. He let me work. I was called the short headbanger because I was taller than him, a lot taller than him, but he was just so big. He was like 330 pounds at the time. So, and I think I was about 280 at the time, but I was pretty jacked up there. So, I mean, I was in really good shape at the time of the movie. And I think that's maybe one of the reasons why they booked me. But they gave me a ponytail. They made me pierce my ear for the movie. I mean, they did all that stuff, and wardrobe and all that. We had our own wardrobe. I just had like a tank top and, black cargo pants and stuff. But and Joe had like overalls, and they had like a rope around him for a belt. So, I mean, it was, pretty cool. They didn't spend a lot on wardrobe for us, but, some of the other stuff. But the catering, they would cater. I mean, soup to nuts. I mean, breakfast, lunch, and dinner we were paid for. And then we got per diem money where we could eat, like at night if we went out to a restaurant. So I think we got like maybe 80 to $100 a day for meals and stuff like that. And they put us up in a 5-star hotel. We each had our own rooms and stuff. So, I mean, me and Glacier split a room because we were, close and stuff. But, he stayed with me the whole time we were filming and stuff. But we had a good time. He was up there a week with me. And going off, like after we shot for the day, but we'd have to be there 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, go to makeup, have your wardrobe, everything done. And you'd go to your trailer, and then they'd send these production assistants to come get you when it's time to shoot or practice your scenes and stuff like that. And they'd bring in all the extras and fill up the, the set with people and the other actors and stuff. So, I mean, it was long days, but they were very productive days. We shot our scene in about a week, me and Joe and Stan.
Yeah, like I think just when you said we had to be there at 5 a.m. and think about like some other people, like the production, we could probably had to be there even earlier just to get everything
Oh,
ready.
yeah.
So yeah, so I've always like said, you watch movies and there's probably maybe like 5 or 10 actors who really sort of get the credit, but it's always those people behind the scenes who just are there from like or like dawn and then just like leave. They don't even go home sometimes. It's such a big production. And I'm glad like you're mentioning that people like them are getting credit because I love music videos, but like, the call time for music videos are like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. because I have to
Oh,
shoot like everything one day.
like I own a security company, and I do a lot of like, we used to do some movie sets, some TV sets, diner studios, and we'd go, on location at places. And I worked a lot with Univision, where I would take their on-air talent to and from different places and stay with them, like up by Yankee Stadium. And when they would do like concerts, I've done all kinds of, production stuff. And we'd have to be there 2, 3, 4 hours ahead of time. I've done the Latin Grammys a couple of times. So, I mean, you got to be there early, set up, and then you're the last one to leave usually after the set's shut down. I've bodyguarded Drew Barrymore and a lot of famous celebrities on their movie sets where pick them up at a hotel, take them to the, set, stay in their trailer with them, walk them on and off the set. So, I mean, I've got to do some pretty cool things after my wrestling career was over.
Yeah, and I just have like one more question because I know we got other people on the line, but
Sure.
you kind of just mentioned like how much like preparation you got before you even got to the World Wrestling Federation. Like you said, you mentioned, you're wrestling Japan, you're wrestling, in the territories and everywhere. If I don't know if you know about this about WWE now, but they actually have like this collegiate type of partnership where you kind of do some training, or you could be a collegiate athlete, and then you get signed by the WWF without like really like any type of like wrestling training. I think they may send you to like one of like their schools. They have like an NIL school or NXT.
Well, now they
But
have the performance center and stuff like that down in Orlando. So anybody who looks the part or is talented or a great athlete, they'll send them down there and they'll shape them, mold them the way they want them to, come out. It's like it's a great thing. I wish they had that when I started out, but we had to learn, like in old gyms, auditoriums, National Guard armories. Somebody would set up a ring in their backyard and you practice. And then maybe back then they used to call outlaw promotions. So we used to, that's how I started out in Jacksonville, Florida in outlaw wrestling. A guy, Mike Thor, helped train me. Larry Hamilton was down there. He was, worked at Championship Wrestling from Florida and Continental Territories. So, I got to learn from a couple of good pros and stuff like that. Then I got in, booked, I actually helped book myself. I got Don Curtis, former wrestling promoter, and we was with the Royal Wrestling Promotion, and he promoted for Eddie Graham down in Florida. I went to high school with his daughter, Lisa Curtis, and she introduced me to her dad and everything, and he helped me get booked down in Championship Wrestling from Florida. I was doing jobs, enhancement talent stuff on TV, helping set up the rings and stuff like that, paying my dues back then in 1984, 85 when I first started out. So I'd pick up guys from the Jacksonville airport and drive them to the ring, the thing. I'd have a cooler beer, whatever. Wahoo McDaniels helped me. Kevin Sullivan was very instrumental in helping me get booked down in Florida and stuff. So, and then, I got to wrestle Kevin a lot. John Arizza used to do a lot of overseas tours and stuff. And Kevin and Nancy were on a lot of those, and I was on. So, Kevin was even going to book me in World Championship Wrestling towards the end, but then, they kind of went downhill and he lost the book before he could bring me in. But, I saw Kevin about 8 months before he passed away, and I took him out to dinner with Rabkeys, him and Andrew Anderson. And, we'd keep in touch on the phone and stuff. And he was just a good guy, Kevin.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say, because, you did mention that, you did a lot of car rides and you did a lot of training. But I just feel like, but the thing is, like you said, you paid your dues. And I just feel like if you're just going from college and then you're immediately in the WWE, and you'll do your training or whatever, but you don't get a chance to really develop your character and learn how to work in front of a live audience and just being in those long car rides, because they're not even doing house shows at this point. It's so minimal. So I think the quality of wrestling, not in terms of the training, but just the experiences of becoming a great wrestler, I think that's kind of gone downhill these days. But I really did enjoy talking to you, Sonny. Sorry.
My pleasure, Edwin. The thing about the house shows back then is you got to hone your skills. Like the first couple of weeks, I was wrestling against Lanny Poffo for 2 weeks straight on the road, different town, different match every night. But it was the same guy. Then I was wrestling a lot with Scott Casey, Cowboy Scott Casey. Then they would put me in tags with either Mike Sharp or Boris Zukov against the Rockers or Demolition, or because we were big guys, so they wanted to put big guys against big guys. So I got to wrestle a lot with Bill Eadie and Barry Darso, and these are ultimate professionals. And Warlord, Barbarian, I used to work with them a lot. So I was with some of the biggest and best guys in the business, working with them, putting them over. I got to wrestle Dynamite Kid in his last match at Budokan Hall, and it was like an honor for me to wrestle these guys that I looked up to when I was growing up and starting out in the business, and becoming camaraderies and co-workers with them, and had mutual respect for each other. From working with guys that I grew up watching, like Dusty Rhodes and them. I never had the pleasure of working in the ring with Dusty, but I was on the same cards as him a lot, with him and Sapphire and stuff. But, going to Japan was a great honor. I went twice. I was tagging with Johnny Ace, and then the second time I went over, I was tagging with Del Wilkes, the Patriot, and we got over really big. So, we had great matches. They were going to give me a nice push, but I guess a couple of people thought I was threatening Johnny Ace's position in the company, so I kind of got, squashed back a little bit.
What was it like sharing the ring with Dynamite Kid back in 1991 as he's winding down his career there over in Japan?
Well, he had a lot of health issues too. His back was definitely giving out, and years of steroid abuse and stuff like that. But he was the ultimate performer. He loved the business and gave his body and everything he had to it. He was the ultimate ribber. Thank God he liked me, and thank God the other boys told him not to mess with me. So I've heard, and I've seen a lot of bad things that happen. They used to, him and Davey Boy, they used to torment Terry Taylor a lot, and then I was there the night that Jacques Rougeau knocked Dynamite's teeth out. So I was walking down the hallway, and Bad News Alan was there, Alan Kugel, and him and Dynamite were walking down the hall. Dynamite had a cup of coffee, and Pat Patterson was walking down the hall with Jacques Rougeau, and Jacques had a I guess it was either a roll of quarters or something in his hand, but he caught Dynamite square on the jaw, and all you seen was teeth flying out and just a puddle of blood. I actually gave Dynamite my T-shirt so he could go to the hospital, and because he went right from there to the hospital. And Jacques went and locked himself in a room somewhere at the arena. We were at a TV taping, and they had to squash the whole program they had with the Rougeaus and the Bulldogs.
That's a famous wrestling story that we've heard told time and time again. I guess I never realized. Of course, there'd be witnesses. There'd be somebody who saw it. That's pretty unique that you got to be there firsthand.
Yeah, I was there firsthand, like it or not. I mean, I wasn't a stooge or nothing like that, but they were all there. I mean, Pat Patterson, Rougeau will tell you they were all there. Bad News and Dynamite, So Bad News was no joke. I mean, I think that's why. And then once Davey Boy found out what happened, they were going around looking for Jacques, so they hit him away.
Hey Rick, I'm while you're talking, I'm watching this match with the Bulldogs, man. Man, you got your working boots on in this one.
Oh yeah, I had to put him over strong on that one. But it was, I got to meet Johnny Smith when I was in Calgary. When I went up to Stampede, actually Owen Hart got me booked up there after I left WWF. But Johnny Smith was up there, Chris Benoit. I mean, they had great Larry Cameron, Gary Albright. I mean, we had a great crew. The Power Twins were up there when I was there. So, I mean, it was really, really a good territory. Steve Blackman was there at the time when he was first starting out. I mean, Muck and Singh, Mike Shaw, or Bastion Booger, whatever you want to call him. He was there at the time. So we had a really good territory. But being a Florida boy, it was just too cold for me up in Calgary. It was, 20, 30 below zero. I was staying at this York Hotel, and they had a strip club in the basement. And I was renting a room for like $400 a week. And my payday was like $750 a week. And I barely have enough to pay the rent and eat up there, and it was like I wasn't making any money. So after a month and a half, I flew back up to New York, where my fiance was waiting for me at the time, and then we got married up here. But that's what happened, up in Calgary. It was great territory, but you had to drive everywhere in vans, and the vans would break down, and they put you back on a Trailways or Greyhound bus to go back from like Edmonton to Calgary, a 3-hour bus ride, and you're stopping in every little town on the way, and it wasn't what I signed up for.
It doesn't seem right that a guy named Sunny Beach would be traveling around cold Canada in the back of a van.
In February, up in the frozen Canadian wilderness. I love the territory. I think in the summer I would have loved it to death, and I would have enjoyed it, but it was just way too cold, and I didn't really have any. The first thing I did is I had to go to a department store and buy winter clothes. I didn't even have any long johns or thermals or nothing, and I froze my butt for the first 3 or 4 days I was there. So I didn't even have a heavy winter jacket. I just had like a regular jacket, and they were like looking at me like crazy. But thank God, like Gary Albright befriended me up there, and he told me how to save money. Make peanut butter jelly or tuna fish sandwiches, take them on the road with you. So the first thing I did when I first got my paycheck was I went and bought a 5-pound can of peanut butter and a 3-pound thing of jelly, and made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and ate them like twice a day, and cereal. And, we had a little refrigerator in the room, so it was it was a learning experience, up there.
I guess that's why they call it paying your dues, for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, we're live with Sunny Beach. Next up on the Wrestling Collector Slam Line, a place that Sunny Beach probably would feel right at home. It's time to fly out to the sunny Chico, California, and talk with Babyface Brian. Brian, good morning. You are live with Sunny Beach.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for spending some time with us today, Sunny.
Good morning, Brian. Thank you so much. A pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I won't stay too long. I just wanted to ask you, you had a tremendous list of opponents that you faced over the years. I'm wondering, out of guys like Steve Williams and Terry Gordy and Abdullah the Butcher and Andre and Giant Baba and Dynamite Kid and Bruiser Brody, are there any that really stand out as far as being super stiff in the ring that hurt you for real, or being being a guy that's a big guy like you? Did you just go toe to toe with them and and didn't experience too much brutality in there, or what was it got like
Really
facing
experienced
these
too much
monsters?
brutality, but Bruiser Brody was probably the stiffest guy I worked with. I think when I was working with him in Georgia, Southern Championship Wrestling, his big finish was the big boot. So he kicked me so hard in my forehead one time that I had a goose egg on my forehead for about 3 days after I worked with him. Big black and blue. I mean, it was swelled up, but I don't know if he meant to do it or if it was an accident. But after he started throwing cases of long neck bottles at me, we were doing a TV taping at Miss Kitty's down there for Southern Championship. And like I said, Doug Summers, Tommy Rich, in a tag match. And then I worked Brody by himself. Like as soon as he got back from Japan one time, and he's used to working stiff over there, he just ate me up. And I was like, oh my God. But he was probably the stiffest guy I ever had to work with. And but Steve Williams, Terry Gordy, they were great to work with. Didn't have any problems with anybody else. Abdullah was great to work with. Um, Ox Baker. I mean, I wrestled some of the biggest, monster heels, King Kong Bundy, Kamala. The list goes on and on. I mean, every big man, Andre, Powers of Pain, Warlord, Barbarian, Demolition, Road Warriors. I mean, I've been in the ring with all of them. And I've never had any problems. Jerry Blackwell was a big man. Got to work with him. Um,
Well,
just
Stan Hansen, you were buddies with him, but I've heard that his sight made it so that he was pretty brutal in the ring.
oh yeah. It, I wrestled Stan 2 or 3 times in Japan and stuff, and but he put me over strong over there. I mean, I got to do a lot of stuff to Stan Hansen nobody else got to do. So, I mean, coming off the top rope and hitting him with a bulldog, and and covering him for a 2 count, and it was unseen, that working the stand, I suplexed him a couple times. Put him in an abdominal stretch, just working his back. Me and Patriot went to work on him for a Bruiser Brody Memorial Cup tournament over there. And I mean, he let me work my butt off on him, and he sold the crap for me, everything. And he's the one that really got me over in Japan, I think, selling for me. Same thing with Doc and Terry Gordy, because I worked with them a lot over here in UWF. So they respected me and they let me work, and they, and Kabashi, Kikuchi, worked with them good. Masawa Kawada, me and Johnny had a great match with those guys, and those were the top 2 baby faces in Japan. So, I mean, Jumbo Saruda I got to work with. So, uh, I got to work with some of the best talent in the business. Chris Benoit, when I was in Calgary, I wrestled him for the Commonwealth Championship up in his hometown in Edmonton. We went 30 minutes back and forth. So this was, years before he got to WCW or WWF, but he was in great shape back then. He loved the business. He reminded me so much of Owen Hart, Pegasus Kid. He would just got back from Japan when I was working with him. So he was, I got to really, really enjoy working with like Mick Foley, when he was, up and coming on the East Coast. We did a lot of independence up here to work a lot with UWF. So we got to travel the world, and I got to work with the best talent out there, and I don't regret a minute of it.
Well, thanks so much for sharing your stories, my friend. Take care.
My pleasure, Brian. You have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Brian. All right, we're here with Sunny Beach. Sunny, before I let you go, last question I have for you. You were prominently featured on the Dark Side of the Ring episode on Herb Abrams. Obviously, I knew that you would be a part of it. How true was the filming to what aired? Because you hear a lot of horror stories about that show as well. What was your experience like for the Herb Abrams episode?
Well, it was pretty good, actually. They should have interviewed more of his family. I thought they should have had his cousin Steve Simon on there, and maybe his sister Hildy. But I think Hildy declined to be on there because the memories weren't that good, and people were talking down, about Herb a lot, and I don't think she wanted to contribute to any of that. But his cousin Steve Simon should have been on there a little bit more with his contributions about Herb. They grew up together. Steve was a few years older than Herbie, and he had a lot to say about him, and he could have shined some more light on the Herb Abrams saga. But it was pretty true. I mean, they flew in Steve Ray over here to New York, and we hung out a little bit. My old tag team partner with Wet and Wild, and we filmed at my office and at my house and in my gym over at my building. But yeah, they could have interviewed a few more guys. I mean, Mick Foley was great. Brian Blair. all the guys. Lenny Duke, he just passed away about a month ago, who was Herb Abrams' right-hand man. He was the heart and soul of UWF. He was the one that did all the post-production stuff and all the TV tapings, and he used to work for NBC Studios. So he was the one that pretty much was the glue for UWF. And I'd like to give a shout out to Lenny Duke and his family. Lenny was a great man, loved by everybody that he came in contact with. And I just want to pay my condolences to the Duke family and to all Lenny's family and friends out there.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time out today, Sonny. And also, I wanted to invite you to 80s Wrestling Con on Halloween in New Jersey in the daytime. If you're free, we'd love to have you there.
No, I definitely love to come. I put it in my book right now. I mean, I enjoy coming to your shows, Tommy. It's always a pleasure. Um, I'm going to try to help you get Stan over there for this big one. Stan doesn't like traveling too much anymore, but I'm trying to talk him into it and entice him, a nice Italian meal up here and hanging out with
I'd love to have him. If you can twist his arm one more time this week, I'd appreciate it.
I'm trying my best for you. I'm going to give him a call back. I just got back from vacation, so I haven't talked to him yet, but you got his number. If you hit him up and I'll hit him up, we'll try to double team him a little bit.
All right. Listen, we might be a better team than Wet and Wild.
We might be. We live a lot closer. Steve's still, but he's been traveling the world a little bit. And Steve's a guy that maybe you should have on your podcast because he thinks it's a conspiracy theory about what happened to Herb. And Steve's a little bit out there, so he's got a different insight than I do on a lot of things in this world. So he'd be a good guy for you to have and talk to about this. And he was on the ring too.
Sounds like a fun episode, Jumpin' Jay.
I dig conspiracy theories. I like people that are a little bit out there. It sounds like an interesting chat for sure.
I would love to reunite with Mark Laurinaitis, and we were the first IWA Tag Team Champions, me and the Terminator, back for years ago with Rob Russin on Sports Channel America.
Nice.
So that's a little bit of trivia that a lot of people don't know. But and then I teamed with his brother Johnny Ace, and then I got to wrestle against his older brother Joe Laurinaitis, Road Warrior. So
yes, sir. Well,
family.
Nice. Well, listen, if I don't see you beforehand, I'll see you at the next 80s Wrestling Con. I appreciate you.
Tommy. Thanks for having me on your podcast, and thanks for inviting me to all your wrestling cons. I really love doing them, and it's a pleasure to work with you and spend time with you guys.
All right, Rick. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too, guys. Enjoy. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. There you have it. Former WWF. See, Jumpin', you learn something new every day in this world. I've known him for 30-something years. I never knew that he was under contract to the WWF because that would be one of the questions I asked him today because I remember him being on a bunch of the house shows in like 89 and 88, 89. And I always found it weird that because usually they'd have the contracted guys, whether it be Terry Gibbs or Mike Sharp or Barry Horowitz, like the lower level guys on the house shows, and they had him. And I was going to ask how he got that, but I guess now we know how he got it.
Yeah, listen, Sonny Beach is such an interesting guy. He straddles that line of like he was still around in the territory days. Wrestling hits that 80s and 90s boom. He's around for that. He's shared the ring with just about everybody, and his memory is still perfect, which is awesome. He can still tell the stories and name these guys like it just happened yesterday. Tremendous gift this morning to be able to talk to Sonny.
Listen, I really like how you're able to on the fly, like you just started showing that video of him and Johnny Ace against the Bulldogs. Like this is why this is going to be cool once we figure out the technical difficulties behind this. I like that you could just throw something up like that, and I've never saw that match before. So I was actually while he was talking, I was watching it. Man, he was a good worker, real good worker.
Listen,
And
for being as big as he was, like he had a great drop kick in that match. He was selling like nobody's business. Sonny could move.
He was a big guy, and he'll be at the next 80s Wrestling Con. If you live in this New Jersey, New York area, if you're coming in for it, he will be at 80s Wrestling Con on Halloween. It's gonna be a big event. Jumpin' Jay, we just announced last night that Jerry the King Lawler is going to be there along with Doink and Dink, and someone in the on the 80s Wrestling Facebook page, but they're from the 90s. I said it's Halloween. Let your hair down. Have a little fun. It's Halloween. You got to have Doink and Dink at Halloween, right?
You have to, and I just want to make sure that it's not going to be Toto and Tom in the Dink makeup. Is he playing
No,
Dink? No, not
no,
Total
but
Tom.
how funny is this? So next Saturday on June the 13th, we're returning to Totowa Day in Totowa. It's a big festival throughout the day, and then they have wrestling at nighttime. ISPW. They are gonna have, and I'm gonna have to probably spend some of my own money on this one, and they're gonna have Totowa Tom in a dunk tank in Totowa next Saturday as part of Totowa Day. So anyone that even any of you listeners that he gets under your skin, you can fly out to New Jersey and try and dunk Totowa Tom 1 week from this Saturday on June 13th.
Best money you've ever spent, a flight to dunk Total Tom.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Jumpin' Jay, it was great connecting with Sonny today. And again, I'm going to try and continue to have a new guest each and every week here on 80s Wrestling, the podcast. This was a unique one today. He's got a different story than someone like Dangerous Danny Davis or some of the other, big name talents that we've had on past episodes. He's more like of a journeyman and a little bit higher than journeyman because he had some success in Japan and UWF, but it was a different story and a unique story, and I like that. And I'm going to work on getting us another guest on for next week. And until then, Jumpin' Jay, I hope that you and your family have a great weekend. All the listeners out there, enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next week right here on 80s Wrestling, the podcast.